So let's talk about forces, Newton's laws of motion. So this question came in 2024 science paper 1, that is physics, and the first question that we have here, guys, is saying state Newton's second law of motion. Okay, so now what I want you guys to understand is that we have got what we call the first Newton's laws of motion, second Newton's laws of motion, and the third Newton's laws of motion. So let me explain the theory of them. But in this case, the question is asking us to just state the second Newton's law of motion. Okay, cool. Now, the first Newton's laws of motion state that when an object is at rest, it will remain at rest. What do I mean? If I have got an object which is here, if this object is at rest, it's not moving, it will remain at rest. If the object is moving, it will continue moving until the external force is applied on it. So first Newton's laws of motion state that when an object is at rest or remain at that state or remain at rest, and when the object is moving, it will continue moving until the external force is applied on it. What does it mean? Let us assume that there is a car that is moving. So if the car is moving and there is no any external force, that car will keep on moving. For example, let's assume that the car is moving from the Copper Belt to Lusaka. That car will continue moving as long as there is no external force that is applied on it. It will continue moving. At the same time, if the car is just in Copper Belt, no one is pushing it, there is no external force, that car will keep on, is going to be at that state unless you apply the external force. That's when it's going to change the state. So first Newton's laws of motion state that when an object is at rest, it will remain at rest. When an object is moving, it will continue moving until the external force is applied on it. That's the first Newton's laws of motion. Now let me explain. You can clearly see here that my handwriting is actually brilliant. You have never seen this handwriting. This handwriting is good. So let me now explain to you what Newton's second laws of motion is. Now this Newton's second laws of motion comes from the formula of force. Force is equal to mass times acceleration. If we are to make acceleration as a subject of the formula, I will divide both sides by mass, The mass and mass will cancel. Acceleration is equal to the force divided by mass. Therefore, acceleration is inversely proportional to the mass. Now, this is where this Newton's second laws of motion comes in. So Newton's laws of motion, the Newton's second laws of motion state that the acceleration and the mass are inversely proportional to each other. That's there. Now let's try to understand one thing. Let's assume that you have got two people who are running maybe 100 meters, and we have got someone who is chubby, someone who is bit huge, and someone who is just bit small in the body size. And then those people are running. You are going to discover that the person who is having smaller mass, they will tend to run faster than the person who has got bigger mass. So in that case, we should know that when something is big, it's going to be moving at a slow rate. The acceleration is going to be less. That's why the acceleration and the mass, they're inverse proportion to each other. What it means is that when the mass goes up, the acceleration goes down. When the mass goes down, the acceleration goes up. So these two guys, they work opposite. Okay. Now let's talk about Newton's third laws of motion. Now I have answered this question, but in a case where they ask you Newton's third laws of motion, Newton's third laws of motion state that for every action there is equal but an opposite reaction. What does it mean? Let's try to break it down. So Newton's third law state that for every action there is reaction. For every action there is reaction, but in opposite direction. In opposite direction. For every action there is a reaction, but in opposite direction. What does it mean? Let's assume that this is a wall. For no reason you are angry and you are trying to beat the wall. So you are hitting the wall with the force of 50 newtons. The wall is going to react. It's going to react with the same force that is 50 newton, but it should be negative 50 newton. So the force that you are using to hit into the wall is going to react with using the same force, but should be in opposite direction. So for every action there is reaction, but in opposite direction. That's what you need to understand about third laws of motion. So for this one I've answered because I stated the second laws of motion. Okay. Now let us go to part B. Part B is saying a block of mass 500 grams is pulled from rest. Any question that is talking about from rest, just know that the initial speed is 0 meters per second. Okay. So a block of mass 500 grams is pulled from rest on a horizontal frictionless bench by a horizontal force F. F, we don't know the force. And it attains a velocity, meaning that is the final velocity. It attains the velocity of 8 meters per second in the time of 2 seconds. Then calculate the uniform acceleration of the block. What is acceleration? Using that formula, acceleration is equal to the v final minus v initial divided by time. So then I can clearly see that acceleration will be equal to the v final is 8 minus the initial is 0 divided by time is 2. So acceleration is 8 minus 0 is 8 divided by 2, and the acceleration will be equal to 4 meters per second squared. Okay. After doing that, meaning that the answer here is 4 meters per second squared. 2 marks. Now, for you to get these 2 marks, you need first to write the formula. So there will be mark for the formula and also the mark for the final answer. So you need to know these formulas. Another thing they are saying, find the value of F. F is basically force. So what is force? Force is mass times acceleration. So now mass should always be in kgs. This is in grams, but let's put it in what? In kgs. So to convert from grams to kgs, divide it by 1,000. So 500, okay, 500 divided by 1,000, and you end up 0 will go 0. So it's 5 divided by 10 is 0.5 kgs. Okay, so it's 0.5 is my mass times acceleration is 4. So now what will be the force? So 4 times 0.5, this is giving me 2 newtons. So the SI units for force is newton. So now the SI units are also very important, so you need to know these guys. So the force in this case is 2 newtons. So if you write 2 kgs. So that is wrong because that's not force. The SI unit for force is Newton, acceleration is meters per second squared, the speed is in meters per second, time is always in second when we're talking about in physics. So these are the things that I want you guys to understand when it comes for Newton's laws of motion. You need to know how to calculate the force, how to calculate the acceleration, and also stating the laws of motion. We have got the first law of motion, second law of motion, and third law of motion. These things are very, very important. Okay, so that is it for this question.